My first project is going to be an app called Interview. It's going to be an app that focuses on the user's ability to search their favorite albums and get interviews by the artist for those albums. I figured this would be pretty good for people wanting to see what an artist's inspirations were for their album. I've always wanted to do that, and now that I have the skills, I should be able to implement it. Here is my rough draft of my wireframes and user stories. As you can see here, the wireframes. This is just a rough draft of what I wanted the site to look like. And then here are some requirements as well as some reference material for going about finding the solutions to some of the requirements. There's some of my database schemas, and then questions to ask the instructor. We had to have our idea approved by the instructor before we started working on it. Some of the ideas that we have are a little out of our scope and ability for us to actually implement in our product. Some things seem kind of easy but are actually quite difficult. One of the bonuses is to add an external API, which is something that we're a little familiar with but not too familiar with. So using that will probably be a bulk of the back end of the project, and sometimes it'll be a little bit out of our scope. So the instructors wanted to make sure that we could actually do it and not waste our time on stuff that we couldn't do. So that was nice. And I got my project approved, and I'm going to try and use YouTube's API for my project to render the search results of the user and have the videos show up on the page. That would be pretty cool, but that'll be pretty difficult. As you can see, I already have some code up. There's my project folder. I've already gotten started. I mostly spent the first part of the project getting the HTML and CSS all set up, and I'll show you an example of what I have right now. I think it turned out pretty well, but this took me quite a while to figure out how to, on hover, change from black and white to color. I think it turns out pretty well. This is my home page. There you go. As you can see, I have the routes all set up. I will include the project requirements so you can get an idea of what is required for the project. And with that, I tried focusing my first little bit on getting a lot of the requirements out of the way, and then I could touch up some things at the end and make it look really good. But here's all my HTML. I've got some JavaScript files set up, and then I also have a lot of images. So there you have it. That's the first little bit of the project, and I'll keep you updated. Since it was a holiday weekend, I began my project on Tuesday back in class. This is a Trello board for workflow with projects. Worked really well, as it's really simple. You can create these checklists and then input some what they call cards. And I was able to do it for all my little tasks at hand throughout the project. It was really nice because I could add something really simple, make sure I did it in line, and I could move it to my completed checklist. So it really helped my workflow, and I would highly recommend it. One of the first tasks that I wanted to knock out was this Contact Me page that you can access from the home page. As you can see, I have my social media icons on the top. That is my LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and each link actually directly links you to my homepage. So I was really glad to get that to work. I wanted to make sure that I had basic functionality with my app first, and then I wanted to get into the complex stuff later in the week before our project presentations. This is a basic form too. I was able to see some of the code on Stack Overflow and make it work. That email does send to my personal email, so I was glad to get that working as well. Sorry for the poor picture quality here. This was taken from my phone. It is DJ Tiesto with a huge crowd in the background. This is my sign up page, which you can access from the home page. This was next at hand. This was all Tuesday, or mostly Tuesday afternoon, as I wanted to make sure that my sign up page worked. It takes an email and a password. The email has to be a correct email or else it won't allow you to log in. And I save all your information to the database
which then helps with sessions and cookies and keeping you logged in. And from this site, you will actually be redirected to my main page where my videos are rendered on the page and my albums. So this is a pretty important step, and I'm glad I was able to get it to work. After a user signs in, this is the page that is rendered. It is my activities page. This is kind of the main aspect of the app. As you can see, I have 3 albums hard-coded onto the page. And from here, ideally, I would like to click the albums and have a video rendered of the artist talking about the album from YouTube. I also needed to get the search bar to work. And this was surprisingly a very difficult process. This took all of Wednesday. Project presentations were on Friday, so I wanted to make sure to get this to work with plenty of time left, but surprisingly it took all of Wednesday. It was really stressful, but I was able to get it to work. I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely scalable, as I can add a lot of data into the database and it'll render on the page because I have that all set up. You can also see that I have the logout ability right there on the right. That was the next step. I wanted to make sure that was one of the last steps I did, and I wasn't able to get the My Favorite Albums part to work. That's one of the next features. You can see that in the top right corner. So my next big problem that I ran into, as you can see, I was able to click on the albums, but when I clicked, the YouTube videos that I was using weren't actually playing. There was an error. So at some point I was messing up and I couldn't figure it out. I spent a lot of time looking at the docs and Googling and Stack Overflow, and I couldn't figure it out. Luckily, near the end of the day, I took about an hour break. I came back to the problem with a clear mind, and I was able to figure out that I wasn't using the right code. YouTube actually has a little embed code at the bottom of the video if you wanted to embed it on a page, as it is different than the actual URL. So that took me a while to figure out, but once I figured it out, it was really nice, and it was the main aspect of my app, which was very important. As you can see in that video, that little short video that I had, I could not get the search button to work. It took me all of Thursday. It was really kind of depressing because I had a few extra features that I wanted to throw into the project and make it a little better. However, since it was very, very important to my app, I had to get it to work, and I was finally able to get it to work late Thursday. I think it was right after dinner time Thursday night. But here you can see the album actually rendered onto the page from the search. It was really, really nice and rewarding to get it to work, and sure enough, whenever you click on that album, it actually renders the video on the page, which is exactly what I wanted. So, very stressful process, took me a long time, but I learned a lot in the way, and I'm very thankful that I had a chance to finish the project.